I fell off a horse in a competition and I fell onto a jump, and then I had another fall in a different sport playing hockey. It got very painful very quickly. It was actually my sister told me to get a coach and to start training properly. That was kind of the start, I suppose. I see Pilates as the baseline that everything else is built off of. The longest run I do is 6 hours. I don't think that's actually necessary. I could do 4 or 5 and get away with it. I do the 6 hours because if I do 6 hours and feel fresh afterwards, it gives me confidence going into the race.
Welcome back to 5 Miles Easy. In this episode, we are joined by Pascall. runs for Salomon, whilst also working as a strength coach and Pilates instructor, living and training in the Quantock Hills in Somerset. But that's not all. and her husband Matt have just launched trail retreats, all-inclusive trail running weekends in the heart of nature, just 2 hours from London.
grew up very active, but her journey as a pro ultra runner really started with the legendary Bob Graham Round in the Lake District. That race sparked further curiosity about where she could go in the sport. In this conversation, we delve into what it takes to run those kind of distances, what it's like running on no sleep, and what it is about trail running that's attracting everyone's attention.
And if you would like to book your trail retreats weekend away, use the code 5miles20 for 20% off your trip.
Steph, ultra running is becoming such a huge thing. And I think, as we said a couple of episodes ago, having been out in South Africa where there it is just the only kind of running that people seem to do, it just seems to be more and more in the limelight. And so I'm so interested to hear this conversation with Fee, who has really forged a path, forged her career in ultra running.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more that you're aware of ultra running, I've just taken more interest in it, where I'm so fascinated by people that do the crazy long distances for, like 24 hours. I'm like, how is it possible? Because I feel like I've just sort of dipped my toe into the ultra world, whereas people are running through the night and I just cannot even imagine it.
It just must be such a mindset thing. I feel like that kind of running just becomes a mental game even more than a physical game. But it is just mind-blowing. I don't know how. The sleep. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I need a bed.
We do talk about that, but it's almost like you don't really feel it in the first 24 hours. So if you're doing more than 24 hours, then like you start feeling the sleep deprivation. But actually, if you just go through one night, you can do it, but I don't know.
Okay, I'm looking forward to hearing how Fee does it.
Fee, thank you so much for joining us for 5 Miles Easy. I can't wait to delve into your trail and ultra career. It's so inspiring to me. And also chat a bit about trail retreats, which is an awesome project that you've been working on. But the first question that we asked all our guests is, what is your why when it comes to running?
Well, to start with, thank you very much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. My why would be exploring, and I think I mean that in both senses. I love exploring. I love finding out where running takes me to. It takes me to some amazing places. I've been to some incredible places that I never would have decided to go to unless there was a race there or I got invited there. But then also I'm not a particularly confident person, and since I started running, I have found out some pretty incredible things about myself that have surprised me. And I think exploring the reaches of what my body and my legs can do has been really amazing. And I always want to find out a little bit more. What else?
Yeah, I can really resonate with both points you made. Firstly, on exploring, because I feel the same, especially if I'm somewhere just on holiday. It's not for running purposes or anything, but actually getting out on a run whilst you're there makes you see so much more of a place. And I just think you get your bearings of a place so much easier. And also, like you say, with races, being in other countries, like getting those opportunities is so cool as well. And the other point you made on your confidence as well, I feel the same in the sense of running's given me so much confidence in myself as a person. I think knowing what you're capable of it just sort of transcends into other parts of your life, which is so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so easy to think, well, I can't do that. That's too hard, especially when you start going into the longer distances. And that might be 5 kilometers for someone, that might be 100 miles for someone. But you always start with, well, no, I can't do that. and then you build up and you realize actually maybe you can. And yeah, then you really learn stuff about yourself and about how much stronger you are internally than you think you are.
And I'm really keen to get into all that, how you discovered those longer distances. But firstly, if we go back a bit, have you always been a runner? What did it look like growing up? What sports did you do? Were you running at that point?
I've always done a little bit of running. I did, cross country at school, and I was that kid at school where they made me do the 1500, the 800 and the 3000 if there was ever a 3000. But I was never particularly good. I normally came second at school, and it wasn't a very sporty school. It wasn't that competitive. And I did all the other sports as well, but I was, not that good. I didn't have very much skill. I had more kind of enthusiasm than skill, I think.
I've read somewhere that you had a bit of a bad back injury when you were a teenager. What happened there, and how did that affect you?
Yeah, I think I was 16, and I used to do this sport called tetrathlon, which is
I've never heard of this.
I know, no one has. So it's kind of the sort of child version of the modern pentathlon. So it was shooting, swimming, running, and horse riding.
Okay.
And again, I wasn't particularly good at it, but I kind of did quite a lot of it. And I fell off a horse in a competition, and I fell kind of onto a jump on my back. And I was 16 and I didn't really give it much thought. I thought, I'll just get better.
Yeah.
So I carried on doing everything that I normally do. I carried on playing sport to the extent that I always did. And then I had another fall in a different sport, playing hockey, and that kind of jarred it even further, and it got very painful very quickly. It was one of those situations. It was kind of, I guess, early on in the world of kind of rehab, I guess. And I know rehab's been around for a long time, but not for I would say the normal person. So I just went to A&E when it was painful, and they gave me painkillers, and they would book me in for an MRI in sort of 12 weeks time. And then I'd have the MRI in 12 weeks time. I was fine by that point. MRI wouldn't show anything. I think probably what it was a slipped disc or a bulging disc of some kind that would kind of come out and come back in, and it was causing nerve damage in my leg. So I had quite a lot of numbness in my right leg, quite a lot of not being able to flex my ankle, not being able to hold my foot up. And I kind of gradually had to stop doing all of the sport that I was doing, which was most of the sports that I could do. And it kind of got worse and worse. And I think with retrospect, I should have worked harder by myself to rehabilitate the injury. But in my mind, in my sort of 16 to 18-year-old mind, I just wanted someone to tell me what was wrong with me and tell me what to do to make it better. And no one was doing that. And I'm not passing blame on anyone. It was just a difficult situation. I just kind of had to stop doing anything.
Yeah. How did you deal with that mentally at a young age, from being very active to not really being able to do anything?
Yeah, well, I was sort of 16, 17, 18. It went on for longer than that, but I basically just did less and less sport and exercise and more boozing. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of lent into that part of being a teenager.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really, really tough. And I did hurt myself quite a lot. Just every time I fell over, it would go into spasm, and I'd find myself in A&E, or
so
with a numb leg or something. Yeah, it was incredibly frustrating. But eventually, when I was at university, actually, I started practicing Pilates, and that's kind of how I teach Pilates now. That's how I found Pilates, and it took a very, very long time with lots of setbacks, but eventually it came right.
So through Pilates, you were able to strengthen back up to being pain-free and being able to run?
Exactly, yeah. It taught me how to notice my imbalances. So I addressed my imbalances, which were massively exacerbated by the fact that I'd been limping for kind of 4 years. So I had to rebuild my right leg strength, and I had slightly twisted pelvis and all sorts of issues. So it was about kind of, addressing all of the imbalances. And like you say, basically just strengthening the core, strengthening the muscles around the back. And there would have been just a little bit of luck and a little bit of time that went into it as well. But it was basically just sticking with some kind of rehabilitation, even though it didn't really help to start with. There was years where I just thought nothing's happening, it's still bad. But yeah, eventually, after a long time, it came right.
Yeah, I love the persistence though, that you didn't give up and you were patient with it, and then, you know, like you say, it became better, and you know, you're strong again.
I mean, I wasn't patient, to be clear.
I'm sure a lot of people would have given up though and said, this isn't working.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll carry on boozing, that's easier.
yeah, exactly. No, it took a while for me to kind of get to a point where I was just going to try anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually I was able to kind of to stick with something.
Yeah, well done. So then how did that lead into discovering the ultra world, the trail world? Where did it go from there?
Well, one thing that I could do fairly early on is run slowly, and I couldn't run downhill, but I could run slowly. So that was something that I just did, and I'd always done, you know, a fair amount of running as a kid, so it was nice to be able to get back into that. But things like I used to play a fair amount of netball and hockey and stuff like that, and that just wasn't an option. So running was the one thing that I could go ahead and do. So then I just got interested in the longer distances, I suppose. I did the classic, I did a half marathon, and then kind of didn't do any competitions for a while, and then did a marathon quite a long time later. But yeah, it was just the thing that I could do, I think. So then that was therefore the thing that I did do.
Yeah. And so how did you then discover that you actually were quite talented at the long stuff? And I mean, you know, since then you've gone on to run for GB and you've run some incredible races around the world. So yeah, was there a point where you were like, actually, I could be quite good at this?
Yeah, I guess it came a long time later. I did the Bob Graham round, which is, have you heard about this?
Yeah, I have heard of it, yeah.
So it's a round in the Lake District, and you do it whenever you like. It's not a race, and the idea is you leave this door in Keswick, and you do a big loop. It's about 100 kilometres, 42 peaks, I believe, and you have to get back to that same door within 24 hours.
What time do you start? Is it early in the morning?
You start whenever you like.
Oh, okay.
So I started at 10 o'clock at night.
Right. Why do you want to start then?
I wanted to get the night over and done with.
Okay.
I wanted to be fresh for the night. So I did that, and I did it. I trained, but I didn't train particularly carefully. It wasn't a particularly structured training program. So then I did that, and I did it in a fairly respectable time. So then I thought, it was actually my sister told me to get a coach and to start training properly. So that was kind of the start, I suppose.
So then from there you were like, okay, get a coach, let's take things even more seriously, and then performances improving.
Yeah. I think because I'd never raced, I'd done plenty of races, but I'd never raced before.
Yeah.
Of course, the training made a big difference. When I didn't have a coach, I would do kind of massive mileage, and then I'd just be really, really tired, and I wouldn't do anything for a week or do very little for a week. So it wasn't consistent.
Yeah.
So I think having the kind of consistent training and also having structured training, I still have the same coach who's fantastic, but also just going into races and actually pushing hard made a really big difference. I kind of did the first race that I did with a coach. I was like, oh, okay, this is racing. I haven't done this before. This is new.
It hurt a bit more, did it?
Yeah. You have to work a lot harder.
Yeah. So what are some of the key principles that you follow in training? How do you train for these longer races? What, for example, what do your longest long runs look like for some of these ultras?
Yeah, I think it's probably fairly similar to marathon training. I do periodized training, so in winter currently I'll do a little bit of speed work, more stuff on the flat, and then coming closer to the race I will do more specific stuff, so that'll be the hillier mountain longer stuff. Obviously you can't run for sort of 23 hours for a 24-hour race. That would just be mad. The longest run I do is 6 hours, and I do that once or twice before a long race, and I don't think that's actually necessary. I could do 4 or 5 and get away with it. I do the 6 hours because if I do 6 hours and feel fresh afterwards, it gives me confidence going into the race.
Yeah, so just kind of finding what works for you as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And like with the elevation and the terrain, I guess you live in Somerset, so is it easy where you live to kind of mimic the hills? Because I find when I'm training for a hilly race, which I am at the moment in London, it's really hard to try and find enough elevation to actually train my legs to deal with that.
Yeah, it must be really difficult. You must have to just travel outside of London.
Well,
I
I go to the Surrey Hills and just
Yeah.
do like a time on feet run around there, just to like force myself to go up and down. But I guess where you
Yeah.
are, it's probably a bit easier.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. I'm very lucky where I live. We have small hills in Somerset. They're not mountains, but I can do the majority of my training, and there's steep hills and there's really good sort of runnable descent, so I can really kind of smash the quads. And then I will generally go to the mountains to do 1 or 2 training runs when I'm training for big mountains. So the next run that I'm doing is in Tuscany, which is hilly, but it's sort of perfect for the Quantocks where I live. The big mountain races like UTMB, I'll have to do a little bit of mountain training.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm very lucky where I live that it's pretty perfect.
Yeah.
And it's really quiet as well. There's not very many people.
Oh, nice peaceful runs.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you mentioned, you're obviously racing for hours and hours at a time. How do you kind of mentally prepare for that? And is there anything what's worrying you on the start line, knowing just how far you have to go? Or are you not worried?
Oh, no, I'm worried. Yeah. Yeah, I worry about the details, I suppose, on the start line. There's been a couple of times actually this year that I haven't finished because of stomach issues, really, that I haven't absorbed the food, and for some reason I've just lost energy. So that worries me. Having happened once, it's more of a worry. But yeah, it's generally the distance isn't that much of a problem. I'm not concerned about that because I know I can do it. It's the things that might go wrong, and this is something that I'm working on because there's not really much point in worrying about it. You know, will I throw up? Will I get cramp? Will I fall over and hurt myself? There's no point in worrying about that. So yeah, it's more. Basically, you shouldn't be worried on the start line. Yeah. But there's always going to be
like control the controllables. That's it. Yeah, exactly. I try and think that way too. It's like so much can happen in that time that what's the point in worrying about something that you can't control?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And you don't, you plan for everything. And if something goes wrong, something goes wrong. People don't finish races all of the time, and that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you stay focused for that amount of time as well? Do you have any sort of mental tips?
I think it's a different kind of focus. Sometimes, every now and again, I'll do like a half marathon or something, and I find them so hard. And I'll find myself running along, and then suddenly I'll just be like, oh, no, I'm not really trying very hard, am I? And then I suddenly have to kind of refocus. So you don't have to focus as much in an ultra as you do in a half marathon, because you wouldn't be able to. You'd just use all of your energy on your brain. So I don't really struggle with the focus. I think about my splits. I think about, well, not really my splits. I think about how long I've got until the top of the next hill, for example. But I break it up. That's really the way I do it. I generally break it up until the next time I get to see my crew.
Yeah.
So I'm never thinking about the whole thing. Sometimes it's more about, right, okay, I've just got to get over this hill and then I've got a really nice descent.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip for any distance as well. Like even if you're doing 10K half marathon, just breaking up the distance can help you get through it mentally.
Absolutely, yeah. And trying to break it up into something that's not just the next kilometre. The next kilometre, I think, is really nice because it stops you staring at your watch.
Yeah, do you know the course really well before you race it? So you can almost like visualize different sections of it?
I haven't done one. I've done 1 or 2 where I know the race really well, but I haven't done very many. For UTMB, for example, I had recce'd the whole thing once.
Okay.
There was one where I did a record in the Lake District, and I knew that really well because I made the course up. So I'd done it loads and loads of times.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, no. I know it just well enough to know that I think I know where the top of the hill is.
Okay.
But 9 times out of 10, I'm wrong.
Just keeps going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's the false summits. Oh. So yeah, no, I've never been in that situation where I know it like the back of my hand.
Okay, yeah, I find like even having not recce'd it, if you just kind of know certain sections of it, it's quite a good way to like break it up, to be like, I know there'll be this at this point, so it's almost get to that point and then you've got the next section coming.
Yeah, like absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. Doing a bit of research about just what hills are coming up.
Yeah.
And what sort of terrain is coming up is really, really useful. And that's something that I'll get my crew to remind me of on a race that I don't know very well. They'll have a kind of brief. They'll have the spreadsheet, you've got this massive hill coming up, but then it's going to be okay.
I love that. Spreadsheets, yeah, talking my language.
We're the co-founders of Boldly, a movement created to make running safer, stronger, and more connected, especially when it gets dark.
Did you know that 72% of women change how or when they exercise during winter due to safety concerns?
All three of us know what it's like to avoid dark routes, cut runs short, or skip runs altogether because we don't feel safe at this time of year.
Boldly is here to change that. From social runs to useful tools, Boldly is here to connect runners, make running safer all year round, and reclaim spaces that we lose.
Join us every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. for our weekly social run in Putney. It's women-led but open to everyone, and all paces are welcome, so no one gets left behind.
And for even more connection, join our WhatsApp community. It's a space to chat, share tips, and meet more like-minded runners.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Boldly Run for details.
And sign up to boldlyrun.com for updates on our app, which is launching soon.
Because together, we can run safely.
Together, we run boldly.
What about the sleep deprivation? When you're running for hours and hours and hours and through the night, does it feel like you're not sleeping? Are you wanting to sleep, or your body goes into a different zone?
Yeah, just absolutely not at all. No,
So
it's
weird.
yeah, it's really strange. I think you don't fall asleep when you're running. That just doesn't. I mean, when you go above the 2 days, I think that's when you
Yeah.
start falling asleep. And I think going into the second night, that's when people talk about the hallucinations and all the crazy stuff happening. But I've only ever run through one night.
Okay.
And no, it's really not affected me at all.
Oh, you watched Sophie Powell the other day when you were at the National Running Show, right?
So impressive.
Was she falling asleep by the end?
She
48
looked-
hours.
I mean, I only saw her on the Saturday, but she looked fine. It was incredible.
She's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how she does it.
It's mind-blowing.
And the monotony of that as well was that would send me to sleep after 3 hours.
Yeah, I've never run for more than an hour and 20 minutes on a treadmill, I don't think, and I don't want to. Thank you very much.
No, yeah, it's reserved for the right people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, no, she's
so
incredible.
impressive. Yeah, so incredible. So you mentioned a bit that you've struggled with stomach issues in races, and it does really interest me because those long races, you obviously have to fuel incredibly well to have energy to get through them. But what are you eating solid food in these longer races? Because I mean, all the races I've done, it's just gels, drinks, etc., rather than actually eating.
I try to on the very long stuff. I try to have some solid food. I never want to. It just feels like something that you should have, just a little bit of fibre, just a little bit of normality for the gut.
Yeah.
So it's not just intaking, liquid. But the majority of my food is still liquid. Everything that I carry is just gels and drinks.
Okay. Yeah. And so how often would you be? Is it really regularly?
Yeah, it seems like all the time.
Yeah.
I think I'll try to have a gel every sort of 20 minutes, but I'll be drinking with a high carb drink.
Okay.
Basically all the time. I try to currently I'm on sort of 80-ish grams per hour, grams of carbohydrate per hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little bit more.
Yeah, that's the number everyone's talking about at the moment. I feel like more and more people are now realising actually need to kind of go a bit higher in the carbs per hour. It does work.
It does work.
But you have to train it as well. I mean, anyone training for these races, don't try it for the first time in the race.
No, that will not go well. It takes about 3 months, I think, to train the gut, and you just do it on your long runs.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple thing, but you've just got to decide what gels you're going to eat and get them, and then train with them. And some people are taking, the men in particular are taking 120 to 140 grams at the moment, which is just incredible. But the times are getting faster, the splits are getting faster.
If your body can process it, then it can only be a benefit, right?
Absolutely,
You've got more fuel, then you're going to have more energy to go faster. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And how about recovering from these long races? Are there any non-negotiables that you have when it comes to recovery? What does that look like for you?
I mean, I'm pretty basic when it comes to recovery, to be honest. Just sleeping, resting.
Yeah.
I try to take quite a long time off after sort of a 100-mile effort. I will probably not run for a week and then start bringing it back very, very slowly. So it's a really long recovery time compared to something like the marathon where you can come back fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Because in the longer stuff, your endocrine system takes a hit. It's not just the muscles. The muscles are fine, basically, after a week, but your bones take a long time to recover. But I think just sleeping and actually resting as well, just do it, chilling out, reading a book or watching Netflix or something, I think is really important.
And doing it guilt-free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's almost like you can see it as part of your training, because it can feel weird when you're not running or training, when you're so used to that, but actually viewing recovery as part of that.
Yeah, and it is really hard to do, but yeah, I think that's a really good way of viewing it. But you always feel like you've put so much time into the race, and then the actual race itself and everything, and you feel like, right, okay, you get back from the race, you should probably do some work, do some housework, do something useful.
See some people.
Exactly. Yeah. Socialize.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really important, and there's no shortcuts. You can't ice bath your way to recovery. You just have to wait until you're recovered and do everything you can.
Patient. And it's going to be worth it when you can go back to training and not be broken for the next block for your race.
Exactly, yeah.
And you are a professional athlete for Salomon, and I'm so interested how that works. So I know a lot of road runners, track runners, but not loads of detail about the trail ultra world when it comes to professional running. So how do you see it when it comes to sort of professional contracts? Is it easy to have a contract and make a living just from being sponsored, or is it a bit trickier than that? Kind of the answer I expected.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I think in the UK there are a handful of full-time professional athletes, but most people have to have a second job as well. Most people, the running is their second job, realistically. For me, that's certainly the case. I think it's growing, the sport is growing, and I think it's really exciting because in America and in plenty of places in Europe, there are loads of professional athletes that are able to give all of their time to their training and to their recovery, because that's the main thing, that's the main hit that we take as runners who work as well. But currently, contracts are fairly small. And I have to say I love working with Salomon, and I'm very grateful for what I've got. I'm just not there yet. I'm not kind of a high enough level, I don't think, to become a full-time professional.
Okay, yeah. Do you see a shift in that happening? Like you say, the sport's growing so much. Do you think there will be more funding put into the trail athletes?
I hope so. Yeah, I think with the growth of the sport, I honestly think there should already have been more of a shift into full-time professionals, because the sport has grown so fast. Trail and ultra is so huge, and there seems to be a little bit of a lag, because it is, at the end of the day, it's the professional athletes that are causing this shift, that are making the sport grow. But I think it is happening. It'll just happen a little bit later. There'll be a little bit of a lag.
Yeah, no, it is really cool. Like you say, the growth of the sport's been so obvious to me. It's just become really commercialized as well, which I guess has its pros and cons, but I think overall getting more people into running is great. And also trail running feels so specific, but actually it's so accessible to people. Why do you think so many just kind of everyday runners are getting into the trail side, and everyday runners are wanting to run far as well, rather than just doing a 5K. That's
so true. Yeah, people are really, really challenging themselves. It's interesting. I think that a few years ago, the marathon was kind of the pinnacle, the longest, hardest, toughest thing you could ever do. And then Ironman came along, and that was then the toughest thing. And then, so there's always this kind of reach to do the hardest, most difficult thing. But I think that trail is more of an experience than road. And I have to say, I'm come to caveat this, that I'm coming from the trail world, and I've never really done much stuff on the road.
Yeah, but I would actually say, as a road runner, trail is definitely more of a fun experience.
Okay.
I love running on the trails, even though I like racing on the roads. It's weird.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I think it takes the pressure off. I think that no one asks about how fast you ran a trail race, because it doesn't matter. No one cares. There's no there's no kind of splits to it. So I think there's that. But then also you get to go to some really incredible places, and you get to do things like see a sunrise in over Mont Blanc, or something that you would just never do in your normal life, and you'd never get up at sort of 3 a.m. to go to run a marathon on the road, because why would you?
Yeah.
But if you're up there at that time, you see some really incredible things. And I think it sort of touches on what I was talking about at the beginning, that people are realizing that the human body is capable of really incredible things. And it's fascinating to know what you personally can do.
Yeah, and seeing so many people around you doing it makes you wonder, oh, if they can do it, why can't I do it too?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely that.
Yeah, I went to UTMB last year for the first time just to watch, and I knew the world existed, but I'd never seen it before. And I was like, now I get it. I was like, how do I sign up? Then I'm discovering all these stones that I have to get. I never knew anything about this.
So
how do I get these stones?
Yeah,
but
it
definitely.
turns out other people have heard of UTMB.
It's definitely on my list.
Yeah, I mean, the UTMB week is it's a strange representation of the trail world, because most races aren't like that.
Yeah, okay. It's good to know.
Yeah, no, it's not that difficult to get into the majority of races. But yeah, it is huge. And UTMB has done amazing work bringing trail running to the kind of normal person. There are difficulties with UTMB, but they have made trail and ultra running what it is today.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. So what are your goals? What's next for you?
Well, I'm doing UTMB this year.
Amazing.
So that's exciting.
And for anyone that doesn't know how far that is, what it looks like, can you just quickly?
Of course, yeah. So UTMB is it's the world final of the UTMB World Series. So it's people call it the Americans, a bit of an Americanism, but people call it the Super Bowl of ultra running. Okay. So it's the big one, and anyone can run, but UTMB is the big one. And there's a few races at the UTMB week, but UTMB is 170 kilometers around Mont Blanc, so it's about 10,000 meters of vertical.
10,000 meters of vertical.
It's a bit hilly.
Yeah, just a bit.
But it's a really incredible race, and it's very popular, and all of the most competitive people in the world are there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the one to do.
Yeah. Okay. So UTMB, is that kind of your main target for the year?
Yeah. And actually, I have some other big races that I'm really excited about as well. I want to kind of take the pressure off UTMB a little bit and not have it my only goal.
Yeah.
So I'm doing Chianti, which is another by UTMB race, which is in Tuscany in April, which is really exciting. Transvolcania, which is in the Canaries, which is going to be really cool. I've never been to that area.
Yeah.
And that sounds amazing, really kind of volcanic race. And it's only 80 kilometers, which for me is a bit fast.
We were talking about this earlier. I was like, 80 kilometers is a bit too short.
Yeah. It's not it's not that I don't like running only 80 kilometers. It's just that the women around me are really fast in that situation, and I'm not quite fast enough, but we'll see how that works.
Yeah.
And then probably Lavaredo, which is another incredible race in the Dolomites in Italy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So exciting. And you mentioned earlier, so you obviously spoke about Pilates helping you recover from your injury. What does that look like now? Because you are a Pilates instructor and strength and conditioning coach as well. So how does that fit into your life and training, and does it aid your training as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see Pilates as the kind of the baseline that everything else is built off of. So it's just a little bit of core, a little bit of strength, a little bit of mobility, lots of hip mobility, lots of balance. It keeps me in touch with what's going on in my body. Yeah. So I can notice if one of my legs is getting stronger than the other. I can notice if there's a little bit of restriction in one of my hips. So that's something that I do regularly, and I'm lucky that I teach it as well, so I can practice by myself, but then I also get a few kind of bonus sessions when I teach.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when you're teaching, you're actually doing it at the same time?
I mean, a little bit, not a huge amount, but a little bit. I always do the balance stuff at the start. I always do loads of ankle stability at the start, which is for my clients, but it's also really useful for me to do loads.
Yeah, I bet you must need a lot of ankle stability on the trails.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really, really important, and it's something that you can train. But so while I've been training on the road a lot in winter, I've been doing a lot of work on the stability cushion, a lot of just basic kind of standing on one leg type of exercises, which is really, really important, because otherwise the ankles just lose a bit of strength, lose a bit of mobility.
Oh, you know what? I don't do Pilates, but I really, like, so many people do, so many runners do, and I'm always like, I need to start doing that, because I do strength and conditioning, like I go to the gym, but actually just like a bit of Pilates is quite useful for just those smaller little intricate bits of core.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. It works everything, and it works them all at the same time, all together. And I think it's a really nice holistic exercise type, where you get to use your body in a slightly different way than you would when you're just doing strength. And while you don't need a huge amount of flexibility as a runner, we want to keep the muscles sharp, we want to keep them working, you need enough mobility, especially in the hips, to be able to stride properly. So it's really good for creating that mobility and stability and strength at the same time, but also just tuning into what you need to work on.
Okay, yeah,
it's
super
like an
interesting.
MOT.
Yeah, okay. Well, everyone get doing your Pilates if you're not already. Let's talk about trail retreats. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Yeah.
So obviously you're hugely passionate about trail running, and that's kind of going beyond just your own training and racing now, as you and your husband, Matt, have built from scratch and set up trail retreats. So can you just tell us a bit about what that is?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this new project. So when Matt and I moved into our little area that we live in now, it was just a field, and we first started by building a sort of shed to put some solar panels on, because we were off grid, and that was really important to us to stay off grid. And then we built a little cabin, and we lived in the cabin for 18 months. And we built a house, and we lived in the house for 18 months. I keep saying Matt did pretty much the whole thing. So yeah, I didn't do very much. And then yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we've just finished building 6 cabins on the land. At the same time, we've been planting trees. We've dug a pond. We've been kind of working on improving the biodiversity of the area, of just our small little patch of land. And the idea with this is to invite runners to come and check out our trails. So we really love hosting people, and it's something that we do with all of our friends already. They come down, and we'll take them for a run, and then they'll relax and enjoy the silence of our place, and just a little retreat away from their busy lives. And it's something that we absolutely love doing, and it's something that we wanted to open up to other people to experience.
Yeah, it's so cool. And yeah, I've been obviously working with you a little bit on it, and just being able to see some of the ideas you have, it just looks great. And like for someone like me, as I said, as a road runner, just being able to then actually spend the weekend somewhere completely different, out of London, on the trails, just looks so much fun. How long have you been planning this for years, or was just like whilst you were building you thought, actually we love hosting people, why don't we just do it more here?
Yeah, it's been in the pipeline for a long time. In fact, it's been something that we've always wanted to do, even before I started taking running more seriously. Hosting in general is something that we've been really interested in for a very long time. So as soon as we had this opportunity to build the house, it was on the cards from then. So it's been kind of 5 years or so in the making.
So what's your aim with it? What's your dream with trail retreats?
Well, we just want to give people an opportunity to come and experience the Quantock Hills, our little pocket of Somerset, and to have a space to spend time with like-minded people, and get to know other people who are interested in the same things, but also learn their stories. I think it's so lovely. We did one retreat a few years ago, and I came away feeling so inspired by everyone else that was there. And people, I think the age ranged from 18 to 70. Wow. And people from all different walks of life, but you all have this one really special thing in common, which is this love of running.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful seeing people brought together by this sport.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're offering education. We're taking people on guided runs. I'll be doing Pilates and strength. I'll be doing talks. We've got some amazing guests lined up to come and do some talks and help with the guiding. So it's going to be educational, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be social, and then also giving people an opportunity, like you said, just to get out of London, get out of the city, and have a weekend for them.
Yeah, oh, it sounds so good. And I so know what you mean about just meeting other runners where you have that one thing in common. It's so easy to start a conversation with a runner because you can already talk about running and then it will go off into other areas of their lives. So incredible that you've had that age range of 18 to 70 where, of course, so many different life experiences and just learning from everyone. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And everyone, it makes you realize that everyone comes to running or to trail running from a completely different angle. You know, you've got your fast 1500 meter runners all the way through to people who did a bit of hiking and then suddenly realized they could run, because a lot of trail and ultra running, let's be honest, is hiking. So yeah, seeing where people have come from and then just building together into this melting pot.
Yeah, it really just sounds brilliant. And then so you've got different types of weekends that you're hosting as well. So how can people find out more about the weekends and book onto some of these retreats?
Thank you. So we're doing some introduction to trail running weekends for people who are new or fairly new to trail running, all the way through to ultra running training camps. So we've got something for everyone. We're also doing some female only retreats, which I think is I'm really excited about that, because I think it gives women an opportunity to join in the same way, and perhaps there'll be slightly fewer barriers. I know some women are just a little bit more nervous about things like pace. If there are going to be loads of men there. So that we have a website, which is trailretreats.co.uk. You can also find us on Instagram on trail.retreats, and you can get it through my Instagram as well, which is Pascall.
Thank you so much. And the last question before we wrap up is, what is your high five me moment? So it's a moment, it could be running, career, life, anything, where you would give yourself a big high five.
It's a really difficult question. I find this really hard. I think probably around my back injury, there were lots of times I'd like to give myself a high five, but I think around my back injury, when I got to the point where nothing was helping and I carried on anyway, I would like to go back and give myself a high five then, because I wasn't in a particularly happy place with that injury, and I was frustrated, but I didn't kind of throw my toys out of the pram. I think that I could have done that quite easily.
I know, and you said you were impatient with it, but I mean, I think the persistence and the dedication you had to getting back is just very inspiring. So I'll give you a high five too.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Fee, for joining us today. It's been great hearing about your career and also trail retreats. Everyone, please check it out because it's going to be amazing.
Oh, thank you, Steph. It's been so nice to chat.